Today, I'm going to build the United States in Lego. From building its history to every state, every president, its biggest war, and even its biggest theme park. So stay tuned, because things are going to get very patriotic. Anyways, Lego.
We're gonna start off over 200 years ago in the year 1776 with this guy, George Washington. He didn't lie to his mom when he chopped down a cherry tree because he couldn't tell a lie. And also, he was the commander of the Continental Army, which was created to fight British people by Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson, who one day got uncomfortable when he was writing the Declaration of Independence, and because he is so epic, invented the swivel chair, which you might be sitting on right now. A lot of these guys are on the money we use every day and came up with some great ideas, like the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that was all written down in the Declaration of Independence, which was written to the British because they wanted to declare independence from them. But the British weren't super happy about that, so they had to fight a Revolutionary War, which had a lot of epic battles, but I wanted to build the Delaware River crossing. So I took 2 base plates and a bunch of blue studs to create the river effect, and had some of the boats loaded with different soldiers, including George Washington. After a few more battles, the United States became a country, with its first president being George Washington. And guess whose mom was there when Washington became president? And not only that, the national bird was declared to be the bald eagle, even though Benjamin Franklin wanted it to be a turkey. People were very excited because the United States was starting to take shape, and the first White House was just built. This is the one where John Adams would live. And after Adams was president, Jefferson decided he didn't really like Adams as president and challenged him to an election. And guess what? He won. He was made an offer he couldn't refuse by Le French to buy a lot of land called the Louisiana Purchase. And to explore the land he just bought, he sent Lewis and Clark to discover things that were out there, including dinosaurs. I'd like to mention they didn't find the dinosaurs. Sorry, Thomas Jefferson. And they were guided by the courageous Sacagawea. The boys discovered all types of new plants and animals, and while they were traversing the land in their horse-drawn carriage, they ran into a brand new animal, the grizzly bear. And a couple of presidents later, Abraham Lincoln was elected, and half the country tried to leave. Hey, you can't do that. Yes we can. A big reason for the war was slavery, and because President Lincoln declared slaves free in the Emancipation Proclamation, it made winning the war much more important. And with the help of former slaves like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, the United States Army was able to free the slaves and beat the traitors. Another important figure at this time was Booker T. Washington. He built schools brick by brick to help teach former slaves how to read and write. And only a couple days after the war, Abraham Lincoln attended a theater to celebrate and was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. Overall, this was a very difficult time for the United States, but it was so important because it showed that we would fight for what is right. Next, I'm going to build the Industrial Revolution, which was a big change because machines were invented to help make people's lives easier and to help connect people faster. Like this thing, which is a steamboat, which was invented in 1807 in Delaware and used to travel the oceans. In 1876, we got the typewriter, which made it so you don't need to write everything by hand, and also in 1876 was the first ever phone invented by Alexander Graham Bell. I tried to build an accurate model of what one load looked like, and these are the first ever words said on a phone. Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you. One of the biggest inventors of this time was Thomas Edison, who was the Elon Musk of the 1800s. He invented the light bulb, which was one of his early bright ideas. He also invented the phonograph, which was the first ever version of a DVD player. But his best invention is the movie camera, and he's the reason you're able to watch this video right now. And in 1908, Henry Ford created the Model T. The reason this was a big deal was because instead of building it like I did, one person at a time, he created the assembly line, which allowed almost everyone to buy a car. Now these may seem like a lot of cool inventions, but we were just getting started. And other countries around the world were starting to recognize us, because in 1884, Le French guy came back to give us a Statue of Liberty. Now this one might be kind of small, but we're not even halfway there yet. Because in 1903, these brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, built the first ever working airplane. I am so gonna try to recapture this using Lego, so let's build. Alright, this looks pretty legit, but will it fly? Yeah, and the flight only lasted about 14 seconds. And also around this time, John D. Rockefeller became the world's first billionaire because of his big oil business. Prohibition also existed at this time, meaning people couldn't legally drink alcohol. And that created a criminal underworld of mafia bosses like Al Capone to come in and do a bunch more illegal things. And because of this, speakeasies were set up, which were made so that the mafia could hide the alcohol and the bars from the government. And so that way everyone could kind of chill and maybe murder a guy. This is also part of why the FBI was invented, to crack down on these guys.
FBI, open up!
And the year 1928 is when Mickey Mouse was invented by Walt Disney. And it's also when Calvin Coolidge was president.
Now with all that going on, America is about to experience another difficult era with the World Wars. These were some of the biggest battles to ever happen and really made America into a superpower who could take on the world's biggest bad guys. Like in World War I, when fighter pilot Frank Luke shot down tons of different German planes. And since Germany was so upset about losing the war, they launched another one across the world again. But America didn't get involved until a bombing by Japan in 1941, and America sent its troops everywhere. Like in the Battle of North Africa in 1940, where we used lots of tanks and motorcycles for the first time. There was also the Battle of the Atlantic, which started in 1939, and one of the biggest battles of all was D-Day in 1944. This one was huge because it used transport ships to drop soldiers off on a beach where there were lots of defenses and bunkers that took out war tanks like this one. There were also planes in the sky, and this is one of the most complicated battles to ever happen in a war. But it wasn't the last battle because they still had to fight the Battle of the Bulge, which was Germany's last real defense, and finally the liberation of Germany within the city of Berlin. There was a lot of really dirty fighting in the cities, but the German leadership was finally defeated in 1945, and the war was finally ended by Oppenheimer when this thing, the atom bomb, the biggest explosive known to man, was dropped.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
After the war, it was a great time to be alive. People were doing well and everyone was having babies. Television was also becoming popular, making some of the first big celebrities, like Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, and the Beatles. Also one of the most famous presidents ever, John F. Kennedy. This era was known for its bright colors and shiny cars, like this Lego Corvette, which I'm gonna build right now. Yo, can you imagine pulling up to the function in this? This is awesome. Are they using bananas for the fenders? Also around this time, a man named Martin Luther King Jr. set out to fight for civil rights and had a huge impact on people being treated equally. Also at the same time, we were focused on fighting communism, which was responsible for the deaths of millions and ran against all the values of freedom and democracy that Americans cared about. It was why Americans fought in Korea and Vietnam, and it was scary because it was the first ever war where nukes were on the table. And if you remember the atom bombs, these are like 10 times bigger. This war never fired a single bullet and lasted through 9 presidencies. And one part of how it was fought was the space race to prove that we could beat them, which made us able to do one of the coolest things America has, send a man to the moon for the first time. And this is by far one of my favorite points in history, so you know I'm gonna build this. So let's recreate the moon landing. So this was the lunar lander, which was the first ship to land on the moon with Buzz Aldrin, Mike Collins, and Neil Armstrong.
All steps for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And Neil was the first ever man to walk on the moon, while Buzz was second and in charge of taking some pretty great photos. And while they were having fun on the moon, Mike had to stay inside. Comment bruh for Mike. I also recreated this famous photo of everyone who ever lived except for Mike Collins. And you thought that was a big invention because a lot more got invented in America at this time. Like in Florida in 1971 where Disney World was first built. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to put the happiest place on earth near so many alligators. Or Star Wars, which was released in 1977. Or in 1983, the first ever McDonald's McNuggets came out, and the same year the internet came out, making it easier to connect to people online and watch cat videos. And around this time, a bunch more famous people cropped up, like Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Michael J. Fox, and Mike Tyson. That's a lot of Mikes.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And in 1992, the Soviet Union collapsed, meaning America won the Cold War and it was officially the most powerful country in the world. Then we went into the 2000s, which was a new century and a ton of cool stuff happened. The prequels came out.
Hello there.
The iPhone was invented by Steve Jobs. Bitcoin was created for the first time. Drones are all over the place. And Amazon, the shipping service, became big. And this cool guy Elon Musk came along and he's currently building spaceships to try and get to Mars, as well as the Cybertruck, which is this really new modern car. And you know, what a pimped out car. And it has to be one of the most hype, goofiest looking trucks I have personally ever seen. Then the year 2020 happened, and it was chaotic. There was a big global pandemic and a big presidential election. YouTube became big, and Mr. Beast became the most watched man on earth. A lot of people forget why America is so great and what it's been capable of when it's put to the test. We fought a revolution under the idea that all men are created equal under God, created some of the coolest machines ever seen on earth. Then we went to overseas to fight the greatest evils the earth had ever seen, came back home and sent men to the moon. And we're just getting started because we always come out ahead, especially when the times get rough. And every fact in this video was 100% true, so comment W America if you learned something or show it to your history teacher. This is the United States of America, and in this video I'm going to be building something from every state in LEGO. Now the United States is huge, and there are a whopping 50 states. So my plan is to build them in the order in which they were founded, and maybe give a little fun fact about each one. Either way, with that said, LEGO. First up, we have the first state, which is Delaware, or as I like to call it, Smellaware, and it is actually where the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden, happens to live. Bruh. And I built him as a little minifigure using Jim's torso from The Office, and then put it in a classic car set, which I think actually worked really well because the dude's in the classic cars. And after that, all I had to do was give him a little bike and send him on his way. Hope there are no accidents happen there. And next up is the state of Pennsylvania. This is where the United States declared independence. First up, we have some soldiers from the Battle of Gettysburg, which was a big battle. Also, Abraham Lincoln happened to speak at this battle and had a really big speech. This is also where Hershey bars are from, so we might be able to enjoy one of those. And it's also where The Office takes place. Who doesn't love the show The Office?
Oh, I'm just pooping. You know how I be.
Next up, we have my home state, New Jersey, otherwise known as the armpit of America. If we're known for anything best, it is our boardwalks. Those are these little planks of wood that we hobble together around the beach. That way people walk across it. Either way, I built that up, as well as a beach with some New Jerseyans and Frank Sinatra, who's a very famous American singer from here. The fourth state is Georgia, and this is where the legendary company Chick-fil-A was founded. This is the most successful fast food chain in the entire country, and I've heard they have some pretty good stuff. Either way, I built up a little mini Chick-fil-A station with a little print that says Chick-fil-A. Now at 5, we have the state of Connecticut, and apparently one of the biggest things in Connecticut is colleges, specifically one called Yale. So I built up a little classroom and put some people in it and made George Bush the professor. He was the 43rd president, and he's here just vibing, answering questions, I guess. Hopefully nobody throws a shoe at him. And the next state we have is the one that makes Europe cringe, Massachusetts. This is where we had our Boston Tea Party in 1776, which sounded kind of like a lame party because all they did was throw a bunch of tea into the ocean. So either way, I built up this pirate ship that looks like a British ship and put a little British person on top. And then I put up one of the founding fathers, John Adams, who's from here, and had him throw some tea overboard. Viva la revolution! Now our 7th state is Maryland, otherwise known as the weirdest looking state.
Why you bullying me?
Like seriously, what were they thinking when they designed this thing? So anyway, I bought this really cool Marvel sports car because the only thing to do in Maryland is drive away as fast as humanly possible. And then 8 is South Carolina. South Carolina has a team called the Clemson Tigers. So to honor this, what I did was went out and bought this tiger set. And this thing is actually pretty fun looking. You change side brows, it has some neat side design, and of course a butthole. I'm not joking, there's an actual Lego model that Lego made with a butthole. And our next state is the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire is known for like one thing. They have a load of trees. Either way, I put Adam Sandler here because he was born here and he's also kind of a funny comedian. Next up, we are on to number 10, and that is the state of Virginia. Now this is George Washington's home state, and it's also right near Washington, D.C. So I thought of nothing better to build than the Washington Monument. And let me just say, this looks nothing like George Washington. Like, who thought like this and said, yes, I don't get American architecture sometimes. Now start spreading the news, because at number 11, we have one of America's most iconic states, New York. Specifically New York City, which is being attacked in literally every Avengers or world-ending movie. And there are so many things you could build from this state. I have a little barista food stand, a taxi, a baseball player, a mobster. Heck, even Spider-Man's here. I even built this little Statue of Liberty, which I thought was really neat. But if New York is known for anything, it is their amazing skyscrapers. So I took this Daily Bugle one and made it one of the most iconic skyscrapers in New York, the one named after the Donald himself.
You're fired!
This thing is huge. So anyway, I put all these things together, and I think this is a pretty accurate representation of what the state of New York looks like. And number 12 is North Carolina. And this is the state where the first ever airplane was flown in the world. And Lego actually made this plane a couple years ago. It's called the Kitty Hawk, but that thing is super expensive, so I went out and bought this little plane. It does stunts. So anyway, I built up this little modern plane, and who better to fly it than Mr. Beast himself? Last person to take their hand off the plane wins $2. And number 13, we have the smallest state, Rhode Island. So for that state, I put down a little stud because it's small, like a stud. Did I mention my name's Republic Studs? You can subscribe, by the way. Anyway, to 14 is Vermont, the skiing state. This place has a ton of mountains and trees, and I didn't know what else to put here, so I put a little ski ramp down because that's what it's really well known for. I'm actually a huge fan of this little ski ramp. We got this little guy named Bernie who I have sliding down it. Do a flip. I'm going down. Oh, this is actually kind of fun. Coolest ski ramp ever. And if you like fried chicken, the number 15 is gonna be great because we have the state of KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. So I ended up buying this custom Colonel Sanders from Firestar Toys. Comes with a bucket of fried chicken and it is
Finger licking good.
And at 16 is Tennessee. And if that's known for anything, it's known for its music. This is also a big part of where Elvis got his start. He's a pretty famous guy. So anyway, to build him up, I used some bricks and minifigures pieces, and then I put a little face on him and some black hair. And of course, the guitar. At 17, we have the most cursed state in the entire nation, Ohio. Now, my plan is to make Ohio completely outrageous. I got this Minecraft End Arena set. Average Ohioan be like.
Baba Booey.
So anyway, I built up this epic final battle and put some of the most cursed minifigures from this guy with 2 eyeballs to Morbius. It's Morbin time. It's very scary. This has to be the most accurate one so far. You like jazz? Because next up is Louisiana. For this state, I went out and bought the Jazz Club set. That's really cool, actually. And it has a little performance area for everyone to perform their favorite little tunes. It's actually pretty neat. At number 19, there is Indiana. Now, this state is not known for a bunch of things, but Michael Jackson, the king of pop, was born here. And he's one of the most famous people to ever live in the country, so I built him up. He looks fine. And at 20, we have a state that I'm not sure if I can spell. Mississippi. Hey, wait, I did it. Anyway, this is where the Muppets were started, so I built a little swamp. So I got to work, and after setting down some tiles and a little log with some clear pieces, it looks kind of like a little swamp. All I had to do was put down Kermit on his banjo, and he could sing something about rainbows. Next at 21, we have Illinois, which would be kind of irrelevant if not for the city of Chicago. And for whatever reason in Chicago, there is this giant being just sitting there that's silver. I have no clue what this is doing there or why it exists, which is why I wanted to make it in Lego. Now, silver's kind of a hard element to come by, so what I did was took some yellow bricks and started painting them with a paint marker, and now it is silver. So this was kind of the best I could do. I don't know. At 22 is Sweet Home Alabama. Anyway, I built up some cursed-looking cousins as well as this demon child. I have no further comments about that. And at 23 is Maine, one of the most northern states in the country. So anyway, what I did was built up a little lighthouse set and then put a crab on it because I have no lobsters. Hey, look, it's Mr. Krabs.
I like money.
Anyway, after that, I have my best build yet, Missouri. They have this beautiful arch in Missouri, so I wanted to recreate that in Lego. I know, I'm so talented. Thank you, thank you. Oh, no, please, one at a time. Best build ever. At 25, we have Arkansas. Anyway, for the state, I just put a rock because, like, there's nothing here other than giant mountains and rocks. Anyway, next up is Michigan, where a lot of American cars are from. So I got this Dodge Charger from Fast and Furious, and I have Phyllis from The Office knitting a little glove because the state is shaped exactly like a glove. Like, it's uncanny. Like, here's Michigan, and here's my hand. Moving on is the home of Florida man himself, Florida. So I took my Walmart set from one of my cursed minifigure videos out of retirement and put it to good use by enlisting Florida man to take control. Now, Florida is known for a couple things, namely palm trees and alligators, so I set up a little palm tree and I have an alligator who is eating this man's dog. But Florida man will not let that stand as he took his American flag and cigar and violently attacked it to save his puppy. I'm not joking, this is actually a thing that happened. Like, this is one of my favorite videos of all time. I also threw in a little Disney castle because Disney World is there and like that's what most people know Florida for. At 28, we have the Lone Star State, Texas. So anyway, I built a little bit of sand with a wall because it's really dry there, and I set up a little spaceship that could get shot into space. This is where the first American space mission came out of. And then we, of course, had to set up some cowboys and grilling. Got to make those glizzies. And then I threw in a little American flag and a football player. I think, personally, this is the most Texas thing I've ever seen. Yeehaw! Now all you have to do is take out the losing team. At 29, we have Iowa, and there's not much to do here other than they hold a lot of presidential debates, so I put these two here. And at 30, we have Wisconsin. People here are really weird. They like wear cheese on their head and stuff. So I wanted to do a bit of a thing with cows. And so I bought another Minecraft set and basically took the cow out of it and had to make some cheese to put on people's head. I know that's not how cheese works. Anyway, the guy who plays Green Goblin's from here too. So we put him in. I bet every Wisconsin would say this was accurate.
Please. Anything but California.
Anyway, at 31, we have the state of California, known for its legendary celebrities like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and its spoiled rich girls with Frappuccino. It also has a bunch of influencers and homeless people, and of course the Karen. So anyway, to resemble California, I took a little Lego store and had some people, you know, looting the place, and I also had some nice homeless people outside, a little garbage truck to, you know, clean it all up, as well as a homeless guy dumping a garbage bucket full of poop onto a Karen. Anyway, after I built up the garbage truck and everything, I put them all together, and you know, that's about what California looks like nowadays. At 32, we have Minnesota, so here's some mini sodas, which they call pop. But when I was a kid, I would always play this game called the Oregon Trail, where basically you would go across the country to explore the West until your mom would drown in the river or your brother would diarrhea himself to death. You have died of dysentery. So what I did for this was I built a little horse and buggy because the Oregon Trail is such an iconic game, and a little cowboy riding. Yeehaw! And at 34, we are not in Kansas anymore, Toto, because this is Kansas. The Wizard of Oz is a super famous movie and pretty much the only thing Kansas is known for. The movie has all these different people like Dorothy, who is from there, as well as the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow. You know, we have a bit of a yellow brick road. 35, we have West Virginia, which has a lot of mining, so I built another Minecraft set. It also has a little communist-looking creeper, which is kind of funny. 36 is Nevada, which is known for the big city of Las Vegas, where there's a ton of gambling going on. And I built a little gambling machine where Walter can play the slot. I'm gonna win big, I'm gonna win big. 30 cents, yippee! And for Nebraska, I got a base plate, because literally nothing happens there. Colorado, I got a little palm tree, because they were the first state to legalize whatever that is. And then we have North Dakota, which is also known for not having people. So here is some grass lacking people. But you can't have North Dakota without, of course, East Dakota. Wait, it's South Dakota? What? Okay, in South Dakota, there's a giant mountain with all the president's heads carved into it, so I printed out a little thing that looks kind of like that. Now, next up, we have Montana, and I built a little miner who's mining for some gold, because apparently that's a lot of what they do there. The next state is Washington, which is named after this guy, and this is a place that he never lived, and I'm not sure he even knew existed, but I built the White House here because that is in Washington, D.C., which is not a state, but I wanted to put it in this video. At 43 is Idaho, which is well known for their potatoes, so here's my Lego interpretation of a potato. Utah has a lot of Mormons, so here's a Mormon. And Wyoming is a part of the Wild Wild West. So for this, I built a little Clash Royale between a native and a cowboy. I think it's gonna go down pretty epically. Well, that was over quickly. Oklahoma has some more deserts. And your mom. At 47, we have New Mexico, where a chemistry teacher is actually from. You may recognize him as Walter White or Heisenberg.
Walt, I don't know, man. Seeming sus lately.
At 48, we have Arizona. So here's a little build of the sun. And now we have the two stragglers. Alaska, I took this little winterscape with a little giant polar bear and put it next to a child who's totally not freaked out of his mind. And finally, we have the state of Hawaii, where President Obama is from.
And I just want to tell you I know how to beatbox with a little bit of...
They have pineapples and tropical things. Also, here's SpongeBob and Patrick, because they do luau's now, apparently. And like that, we have every single American state in Lego making up the entire United States. This is George Washington, and this is every US president. And in this video, I'm gonna recreate every United States presidency going all the way back to the 1700s up to today. So with all that said, Lego. This is the first president, George Washington. He was born in Virginia and was elected the first president by basically everyone. That's because he was the leader of the Continental Army, which fought to free the United States from Great Britain. And what's even weirder is he didn't really want the job as general or president. Everyone just kind of forced him to do it because he was so epic. He led his men into battle in his Dodge Challenger. Not really, although that would be epic. And even threatened to shoot cowards who tried to escape the battlefield when fighting the British.
We're done when I say we're done.
He was married to Martha, who helped at war camps. And he never actually got to sign the Declaration of Independence because he was too busy fighting the war. Like when he got some of his boys onto boats and crossed the Delaware River, which I built. George Washington became a big hero and was democratically elected because most people voted for him. He set presidential precedents, which are basically rules that all their presidents had to follow, like only staying in office for 2 terms, so that America wouldn't become a monarchy, or creating a cabinet. Not that kind of cabinet. This one had different jobs, which he gave to people like Thomas Jefferson and Henry Knox. And his vice president was John Adams, who said his job was the most insignificant invention ever created by man. I don't think John liked his job very much. Which works out because he became the second president of the United States. But now I have to build the Oval Office, where the president makes their most important decisions. So let's build.
Also, if you like this Oval Office build, I'm selling it on my Rebrickable page so you can get the instructions and make your very own. Yo, this place is looking pretty presidential, which is why I sat down Adams to get him ready for his presidential duties, like signing treaties with Le French, being a master negotiator, approving or denying laws, and being commander of America in wartime. Now, Adams thought you could bend the Constitution a little bit, and Thomas Jefferson didn't like that very much. And so began the first beef of 1800. They fought and debated a lot, and eventually Jefferson kicked him out of the Oval Office as the third president. Now, Jefferson was a pretty awesome guy. He owned and read over 10,000 books, collected dinosaur bones, and eventually had one named after him. It's the Jeffersaurus! And while writing the Declaration of Independence, felt uncomfortable, so invented the swivel chair so he could sit and spin. He also bought the Louisiana Purchase, which is this big spot of land from the French, and he sent his boys Lewis and Clark to go discover new animals, but especially dinosaurs. They didn't find any dinosaurs. And also during this time, Jefferson's friend Hamilton was shot in a duel, and after he served his term, he retired. He and John Adams became friends again 50 years after they signed the Declaration of Independence, and when John Adams died, his last words were, "Thomas Jefferson survives." But he died a couple hours before, both on the 4th of July. The fourth president was James Madison, and he was really short. When he was president, the empire struck back. The British came to the US and even lit the White House on fire, causing it to go up in flames. But the US fought back and won, sending the British away forever. James Monroe was the 5th president and the last one to be a founding father. He created a rule basically telling the British and all their friends to leave us alone. He also died on the 4th of July. 6th was that guy who was next to Adams when he died, his son John Quincy Adams. Except now he's bald and the president. One time when he was teaching his sons how to shoot, he tried loading an already loaded gun and almost shot himself in the face. He was also the only president to become a congressperson after being president. The 7th president was Andrew Jackson. He was a huge fanboy of Thomas Jefferson and wanted to be just like him. He also had a massive dueling problem and dueled over 100 people in his life. For reference, this is 100 people. Bro. 8th is Martin Van Buren, and when he was president, Texas was a country, and they wanted to join the states. And when they asked to join, he hit him with the big ol'. The 9th president was William Henry Harrison, and he died 31 days after becoming president. 10th is John Tyler, who wasn't elected because his boss, you know. And he also made Florida a part of America, making Florida Man an American. Oh yeah, alright. 11th was James K. Polk, and he died 3 months into his term, and 12th was Zachary Taylor, and he ate some bad cherries and died 1 year in. Bro, what's happening? Wait, why is everyone dying? Millard Fillmore was the 13th president, or as I like to call him, the Rizzler-in-Chief. One time he visited the Queen of England, and she thought he was the most handsome man she'd ever seen. Franklin Pierce was 14th, and you don't want to know what this man went through. The 15th is James Buchanan. He's arguably the worst president. And 16th is Abraham Lincoln. He's the one on the penny and has a whole monument dedicated to him. When he was young, he used to get in fistfights a lot, and he was even in a gang. He was also super tall and fought the great evil of slavery. He commanded the Union Army in the Civil War and wrote the Emancipation Proclamation to free the slaves. A couple of days after the war, Lincoln attended Ford's Theater, and a man named John Wilkes Booth came and shot him in the back of the head. Lincoln was arguably one of the best presidents to ever live. But before we go any further, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Raycon earbuds. Raycon's everyday earbuds are made to make your everyday just a little bit easier. For instance, I like using them when I'm filming a video or listening to a history podcast. They also have active noise canceling, so you don't have to listen to people yapping while you're trying to watch the latest Republic Studs video. The headphones also have a 32-hour battery life, which is the same amount of days that William Henry Harrison was president. The built-in weatherproofing is great for me and Florida Man when we go out on our various adventures outside in the Florida wilderness. Come here! Come here! Where's Brooke going? And I'll be honest, these are the best pairs of earbuds I have ever used. I also love the case they gave me. I got a ton of designs to choose from, and I ended up going with the blue water one because I thought it looked the nicest. So go to Buy Raycon today for 20 to 50% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 50% off everything when you go to buyraycon.com/republicstuds. Buying them with my link also supports this channel a ton, and I really think they're a fantastic product that you'll love. Put your buds in and let's get into the next president. Andrew Johnson became the 17th president, and John Wilkes Booth actually hired his friend to take Johnson out the same day as Lincoln, but the friend chickened out. Next was Ulysses S. Grant, who was a big war hero, and he was also invited to the theater, but he couldn't make it, which turned out to be lucky.
and he's on the $50 bill. And 19th is Rutherford B. Hayes, and he might have had the most epic presidential beard. 20th is President Garfield, and he was shot in a train station when he was with Abe Lincoln's son. He died a little bit later right here in New Jersey because the doctors spent too much time trying to take the bullet out of him, even bringing in the first ever metal detector to try and find it. Chester A. Arthur was 21st, and he liked clothes and owned over 80 pairs of pants. Grover Cleveland was the 22nd president and only president to win, lose, and win again. And also the only person I've ever heard of named Grover. 23rd was Benjamin Harrison, and he's the last president to this day to have a beard. Oops, Cleveland's back. William McKinley was elected the 25th president. And when he was at the World's Fair in 1901, where many of Nikola Tesla's inventions were being shown off, a man came up to shake his hand and then shot him. The Secret Service, which is the president's special protection unit, started beating up on him so badly that President McKinley told them to take it easy on him. He died shortly after, making his vice president Teddy Roosevelt the 26th president. And this man was a legend, or what he called himself, a bull moose. He spoke softly and carried a big stick, created the FBI, won a Nobel Prize, and liked to box. Lost vision in one eye in a match and took on jiu-jitsu instead. And when he was giving a speech, he got shot in the chest and lived, brought the shooter up on stage, asked him why he did it, and then kept giving the speech with the bullet inside of him. Later, the Secret Service found a note from the shooter that said the reason he wanted to shoot Roosevelt is because the zombie of William McKinley told him to. Teddy was also a big outdoorsman and refused to shoot a bear, and because of this, teddy bears exist. Next was William Howard Taft, and he was a big fella. Really big. So big, he supposedly got stuck in the White House bathtub so many times that they had to order him a new one. Teddy also came back and tried to run against him and Woodrow Wilson, and Wilson won. While he was president, Prohibition was created, which banned the sale of alcohol, and also World War I broke out, and he was commander-in-chief of the whole army. He was a big fan of big government that had more power than it was supposed to in the Constitution, which led to Warren Harding becoming president because he promised things would go back to normal again. But he died a few years in creating my favorite president, Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge was sworn in as the 30th president by his dad. He was a very honest and quiet person, and while he was president, Americans got access to new tech like Model T cars, radio, and electricity. Part of the reason Cool Cal was so popular is because he didn't want to get involved in people's business, creating the Roaring 20s. The next president was Herbert Hoover, and he was an engineer, and different from Cool Cal because he wanted to try and engineer everyone's business, which led to the Great Depression. FDR became the 32nd president and had to use a wheelchair to get around. He was the president when World War II broke out and oversaw the fight against the world's greatest evils in Germany. Harry Truman was next, and he worked with Oppenheimer to drop the atom bomb for the first time ever.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
He was also the first president of the Cold War to fight against communism, which ran against the values of freedom and democracy that the United States had, and the Soviets even built the Berlin Wall to keep people from escaping communism. Dwight Eisenhower became the 34th president after being a 5-star general in the army during World War II and commanded the storming of Normandy Beach, one of the biggest battles in warfare ever. Next was John F. Kennedy, who ran against a man named Richard Nixon and won. He dropped the line,
"Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country."
He was very popular and the youngest president ever elected. And on November 1963, when he was in the back of a car, Lee Harvey Oswald, a professional sharpshooter, shot him in the head. When he was killed, Lyndon B. Johnson became president and continued to fight the Cold War, and he was responsible for deploying a lot more people to Vietnam.
Nixon's back!
And this time he was president when the first men were sent to the moon. And while Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Mike Collins were on the moon, President Nixon called him up on the phone.
"I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House."
Apparently you could just do that back in the 60s. Later it turns out he had to cover up some not great stuff and left his vice president in charge. And this is Gerald Ford. He was a college football player and his favorite movie was also apparently Home Alone. Jimmy Carter was next, and he recently became the first ever president to turn 100 years old, alive almost 50 years after he was president. And he kind of made everything expensive and wasn't super popular, which is why Ronald Reagan won a fairly large victory against him as the 40th president. And he was the president who really brought an end to the Cold War and called the Soviets to
tear down this wall.
This is George Bush 1, and he became the 41st president and lost after one term to Bill Clinton, who was the jazziest president. George Bush's son, George Bush, was next, and he had a couple of shoes thrown at him. He also saw America through some of its darkest days, from a terrorist attack on September 11, 2001.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people
Obama became the 44th president and ordered SEAL Team 6 to take out the terrorists who did the attack. And Donald Trump became the 45th president after building giant skyscrapers, being a famous TV celebrity.
You're fired.
And he was also in Home Alone.
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
He came in promising to build a wall like this one. That's the hugest wall I've ever seen in my whole life. It's amazing. And he was the 3rd ever president to get shot in the head. And the only one to survive, making for one of the coolest photos ever. He also put a big red button on his desk to scare his enemies. And as of recording this video, Joe Biden is the 46th and current president, and he really likes chocolate chip ice cream. But after a series of stumbles, tumbles, and mumbles,
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was gonna excuse me.
And these 3 presidents all really should probably play Minecraft. I'm gonna build a wall with Joe. Joe, that's a calculator and not Minecraft. Hey, come on, man, I'm just trying to play Minecraft. Which brings us to today, where Trump or Kamala could be president. Comment your favorite president down below. Maybe it's the same as mine. Cool, it's cool, Cal. If you want to learn more about American history, watch this video or watch this one where I build every state. With that said, God bless and stay awesome.